Welcome to the Supreme Love Project, where you learn to love supremely so you can live supremely. This is a Power Hour. This is the place where you can get the information you need to heal the terrors in your soul and launch a revolution in your life. Get ready. Take notes. Now, here's your host, Janine Staples.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Supreme Love Project. This is Janine. I am here with another wonderful guest for our Cold Crush podcast teleseminar series, and we are going to dig into some more juicy topics, some more interesting ideas, and some more information that you need to heal the terrors in your soul and launch a revolution in your life, really develop some strategies and perspectives to melt some of the iciness around your heart and some of the boundaries to intimacy that you've built up over a long time. Okay, I want to dig into it. Our next guest is the one and only Taria Pritchett, who is the founder of the Unleash Your Fierce movement. And I want to say welcome. Taria, are you there?
Yes. Hi, Janine. How are you?
Hi, I'm so well, and I'm glad to hear your voice. And welcome to the Supreme Love Project. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
So my name's Taria Pritchett, and I'm a confidence coach for women who need to get their ish together. And I help women in primarily three main areas, and that's with personal development, that's with relationships, and that's also with them stepping into their purpose. And I was able to get into this work a couple of years ago because I was in a relationship where I found out that my partner was unfaithful. And from that experience, it really kind of turned my world upside down because I think that I put a lot of, my identity, I put a lot of thought, time, energy into that relationship. And when I found out that my partner was unfaithful, and on top of that, he had fathered a child by somebody else, that really broke my heart. And I really didn't know how to handle that. And I kind of went on this really deep and soulful journey of really discovering, who I am and really trying to figure out how did I get myself in that position, because I would see women all around me, right, they had great marriages and, they were confident and they were very fierce. And meanwhile, I'm over here and I'm struggling and I'm going through this relationship. And at that time, I hadn't launched my business. I hadn't fully stepped into my purpose. I hadn't really, loved myself in the way that I thought that I did when I ended up in that situation. And as a result of that, I ended up going to a conference, actually a conference for African American leaders at the time. And at the time, Courtney B. Vance, who was an actor, he's married to Angela Bassett, the lovely Angela Bassett. And they had just wrote a book, and they put their book out. And I was listening to his little spiel that he did. He's trying to sell us on his book. So he just starts talking about Angela, and he moves his hands to the side, and her picture just starts popping up on the screen because she wasn't there. And he's like, she's my queen, and she's amazing. And actually, just one day prior is when I had found out about my relationship and had found out, my partner at the time had kind of sat me down and actually, which a lot of people don't get that courtesy, but sat me down and told me, that he had fathered a child and all that. So at that, I was really distraught at the time, right, and really kind of really down. And that next day, while I'm sitting there listening, I'm like, wow, look at Angela on the screen. She is so strong and so powerful, and I could be there too, right? And again, like I said, I went on this journey for me to kind of discover how to kind of unleash my own fears, right? And how to really own my sense of self-worth and how to get my self-esteem up and how to love my body and how to get myself to a position where I can attract a guy at the level that's at my level and not somebody who is going to disrespect me or who's going to, hurt me in that type of way. So it was a blessing in disguise because lo and behold, after I went through that journey, that's when I decided to start my business. And that's when I started blogging, and then I eventually turned it into a business. And now I get to help other women, work through these type of inner issues, help them heal that bag, especially the emotional baggage that we carry as women, so that they can get to a place where they're fierce and they're powerful and they're walking in their purpose and they're attracting the right relationships.
Yes. Tara, you are a sister. You are a sister in supreme love. You are. You are a sister. It's so often the case that those of us who go through relational or social terrors, and what I would say as a supreme lover and as an aspiring supreme lover, that example that you provided for us was a relational terror. Infidelity and lying, gaslighting, that's a relational terror. Even though you were extended a courtesy, like you said, that is relatively rare, to be lied to be demeaned, to be overlooked is a situation that wreaks havoc on the soul. And it's easy to erect an icy barrier as a result of such an experience, an icy barrier around your soul that says, I cannot let anyone else in. I am not safe in love. I am not secure in life, especially when we as women disidentify from ourselves and, like you said, hold our identities in our relationship, in our counterpart, especially when that romantic and sexual counterpart is someone who we have spent an extended period of time with, either in the imaginary or in reality. And I say that specifically for the women who are tuning in right now who are pining over a crush who does not acknowledge them. You were in an actual relationship, but there are some people who are in imaginary relationships who experience that same bitter end of realizing that they were not matched healthily, that they were not regarded lovingly, that they were not cherished, that they were not honored. And so some of us get that wake-up call like you did when we see another woman being blessed with her rightful partnership. So that's a powerful story, and I'm so glad you survived that terror, and I'm so glad that you stepped out in faith and decided to crush some of your cold. That takes guts.
It does.
It does. So tell us a little bit about what you do when you work with women. You talk about unleashing your fears. What does that look like? What are the steps?
Awesome. So when it comes to unleashing your fears, I typically take my clients through a 5-step process that has to do with the letters of fears, actually. And I actually have a program, a 6-week program that focuses on that. So if you start with the F focuses on finding your fierce edge, because I find so many times when my clients approach me, they don't, like I was saying with my own self, I didn't really see my worth. Sometimes people don't see their value, right, or they feel unworthy, and they feel like, they're not skinny enough, they're not pretty enough, they're not qualified enough or certified enough. Even a lot of people often tell me they feel like an imposter, right, or they feel like they're a fraud. Especially at work, I get because a lot of my clients are professional women, but they feel like frauds, even though they already have, degrees, or they've already went through some type of program to be ready. They just don't feel as though they're valuable. They don't feel like that what they bring to the table matters. So for the first part of unleashing your fears is, again, the F is finding your fierce edge. So I teach women how to find what makes them unique and valuable, and I almost kind of take them through a process where they kind of figure out their own personal brand in a way, which so many women, which is even a struggle sometimes. The F stands for ignite your inner queen. And for this part is where I often tell my clients that you can't be a queen if you have like a peasant mindset and you're doing peasant actions, or you're hanging out with people who are on a peasant level. You have to kind of surround yourself with other people, like-minded women who are going where you are going. And in order to do that, you have to release a lot of the inner baggage that you're carrying if you want to get to that queen status. For the E in Fierce, I work with women on elevating their confidence. And that's where I help them get in alignment emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And we do a lot of work with our chakras for women who are familiar with that, because I'm really spiritual as a coach, and I do bring some of those practices into the work that I do with my clients. And then that brings me up to, I did the F, the I, the E. The R is raising your men and money vibration, which usually hooks a lot of women in, because a lot of women obviously want to make more money and they want to attract the right guy. And so often women don't realize that there is, especially on a vibrational level and a spiritual level, that there is a connection between men and money. usually. There's a connection between that. And I often teach my clients that the way that you try to attract a man and the type of relationship you have with men is similar to the type of relationship that you should have with money, which is always really surprising to women, but they're always really intrigued when I kind of take them through the process of that.
Right.
And then next would be cultivating your sexiness, and that's where we focus on body image and self-love and cultivating that feminine power that a lot of women have kind of goes out the window, especially when we're at work and we put so much masculine energy into things. And that's especially true for women of color, especially African-American women. It can be harder for them to switch into that feminine energy, or they've grown up in households where they see their mothers kind of in a more masculine role. I know, for example, I saw that a lot growing up since I came from a single parent household, which did ultimately impact me, and it does affect a lot of my clients. So they like learning about the feminine energy. It's a little hard at first, but eventually they get it. And then lastly for F.I.E.R.C.E is the E, which is empowering yourself daily. So at the end of my 6-week program, I teach my women how to come up with a consistent strategy to help them consistently be confident on a day-by-day basis and consistently affirm themselves. You know, if something does pop up, so such as, like you said, as some type of terror, we have terrors inside of us, but there are also things outside of ourselves that can be terrors that pop up right out of it. Life is not always easy. So I kind of teach them some strategies that they can use. So if they're having a bad day or they start to feel shame or they feel unworthiness, I give them some strategies as well as some audios that they can use to kind of pull themselves back together so that they're not, crying or they're not sulking or they're not feeling really down or depressed, and instead they can be resilient and they can bounce back and be confident and fierce and keep moving forward.
That sounds powerful. That acronym is fantastic. And ladies who are listening in right now from all over the world, I didn't say this at the beginning of the interview, but I'm going to say it now because it's a good time. Write down what Tara is saying. Write down that acronym and make sure you do some investigation into all of those facets because those are very important points for when we are relearning how to do intimacy, relearning how to connect with femininity, relearning how to be healthy and whole and sound, not weak and, I guess, perpetually victimized in life and love. So that F.I.E.R.C.E acronym is wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So I have another question for you. It leads me into another space.
Okay.
I'm wondering about, in your work, I can think about this with mine. I'm thinking about the socialization that we experience as women, and how confusing it can feel to be a girl or to be a woman, and how those socializing forces play a role in either owning our self-worth or disowning our self-worth, knowing our value as women or feeling completely detached and out of touch with our values. How significant is it for us to get really clear and really honest about our upbringing, about our story, our history, and our socialization?
So that's an excellent question, Janine. So it's very, very important for us to be clear about our stories because the stories that we tell ourselves, I always ask my clients, what's the story you tell yourself when no one else is around, right? Because that story that you constantly tell yourself, even from when you were little in your upbringing, right, you're always carrying that with you. So, and I always call it usually your baggage that you're carrying. And you can kind of visualize yourself with carrying all of these different bags of things you picked up from your parents, from maybe being bullied, from seeing things in the media. I know a lot of my clients usually struggle sometimes with skin tone, because everyone on TV is really light or really fair skin, and their hair is usually really, really straight. But they're like, but I don't want, my hair doesn't look like that, or it doesn't lay that way, or my body type is not that way. So that's again where we get into this space of I feel unworthy, and then we kind of replay that in our mind over and over, and then a lot of women are like not understanding why they attract certain guys who might disrespect them, right, or certain guys who might not even look their way because of the type of energy they put out. But when you're telling yourself a certain type of story in your mind and you don't take the time to do the inner healing work that it really takes to kind of unpack all of that, right? Because if you've been living with, these negative thoughts for 25 years, 30 years, 40 years, right? So often women come to me and they just want it to be gone right away. Like, I want to feel confident right away. But it doesn't work that way because you've been carrying that story for 30 or 40 years. So it takes time to really process it, to unpack it, and then start changing that story that you tell yourself, right? And I also teach my clients that regardless of, what's going on in the rest of society, especially as women, it's this idea that, even when you're little, right, you're supposed to be into pink and you're supposed to wear dresses and you have to, when you graduate, you have to go to college and usually you have to find your mate and you have to get married by 25, right? And if you don't, then that's when women also start to feel unworthy because there are these timelines that are put up within society that we have to fit into. And if we don't, we feel bad about ourselves. But I try to teach my clients that instead of looking at the timeline that you think society is given, write down what it is that you really want. What is your vision? What is your goal? Maybe you don't want to have a kid by 30 because you were planning on doing something else. Maybe you want to run your business and get established before you do that, and that is okay. But you have to learn how to own your own choices and your own decisions and not just be a victim of, the patriarchal society that we live in that tells you that as a woman, you have to do this and you have to do it by this certain time frame. Instead, you need to own your own story and follow that path.
Right. And so, getting clear about your stories, and I tend to use the plural. A lot of times people think there's just one story that they have and they miss a lot of the nuances. So let's say, for example, if you are a 30-year-old white woman, let's say, you might say your story just includes, your parental heritage. I was raised by a single mom, and we lived in the city, and I have 2 younger brothers, and I went to college, and I had a pretty typical upbringing. That's a general story, but there are multiple stories that we come from, and there are multiple stories impacting our understanding of who we are. So we got to dig a little deeper. That's one of the reasons it's so important to have a coach, because often, I don't know if you've experienced this, Tara, but and I've been coached by some of the best in the world, and really sustained leadership in finding out the multiplicity of our stories is a big, huge part of what saved my life.
Yes, I agree.
Some of my stories were hidden from me, from my conscious thought. I couldn't see my stories. Some of my stories were etched together with my mother's stories, with my grandmother's stories, with my best friend's stories. And I assumed them and took them in on my own. Some of those stories had to do with my body. Some had to do with my coloring. Some had to do with my height. Some had to do with the way that I speak. Some of my stories had to do with my education. There are all kinds of stories that are running in our souls. And if we are attempting to, as Tara is doing, unleash your fear, evolve to a supreme lover, when you want to build your confidence, you want to reestablish your self-esteem, you're going to have to understand that undercurrent. It's just like Tara said, it's not going to happen to crush that cold in 5 days or, a 50-minute session with a great therapist. This is lifelong work.
Yes.
Do you feel the same way, Tara?
Yes, I agree. It is lifelong work, right? And once you kind of heal one space, then you have to move and kind of start healing another space. It's a part of your evolution as a woman. And I always tell people in general that you're here to fulfill your potential, right? And you want to become the highest, fullest expression of yourself. So in order to do that, you're constantly going to be shifting, changing, and evolving if you want to become, the woman that you desire to be. Because we all have a vision of who we want to be, but oftentimes all those stories that we have playing in the background, especially unconsciously, they're always at work, right? So even when you might try to go for that promotion, or you might try to start that business, or you might say, I'm ready to get married, but if you don't handle, those things that are inside of your soul that need to be healed, then it's going to be very hard for you to take the steps that you need to. And then once you do take those steps, so say you do heal a part of yourself and then you get married, new challenges are going to pop up because now you're you're partnered with somebody. That's different from being on your own. And now you have another person's stories bumping up against your stories.
Against your
right?
stories.
Exactly. So then it's like, okay, now I got to handle his stories, right? So
yes.
it's constantly, and then when you have children, they have their own story too, right? And you're playing a big part in that story as well, right? So you do have to constantly work on yourself, and it's not just for you, because if you become better and you heal yourself and you have the right tools that you need, and that's why it's another reason to have a coach or even to do, a program or something like that, because then you can pass those tools along to your partner. Obviously, your partner has to be open to it, but if you've healed to a certain level, you can attract the right person who probably will be open to it, but then you can pass that down to your children. And then imagine if the world was full of people who own their worth, right, and who were fierce and who have healed all the tears in their soul, right? Then our world would be a lot different. It wouldn't probably be as violent. It wouldn't be as, crazy politically, or, just other things that are going on in the world that are major issues if people did love themselves more and they own their worth more and they weren't into, okay, we have to have a competition and compete with other people so I can be better, which boosts my own self-esteem. But instead, we want to focus on being whole, being worthy, being abundant, being prosperous, and most importantly, being full of love, right? As Janine says, the supreme lover identity is what we want to spread around, but we can't be supreme lovers if we don't first handle our own baggage and our own stories that we're carrying.
That's right. It's important to learn that today. Oh, wow. So I want to understand another couple of concepts from your work, Tara.
Okay.
So what is this thing about bootleg happiness? What is bootleg happiness, and how can one overcome it? I think I know what it is.
You probably do. So I use bootleg often. So it just kind of flowed into my work. I just said it one day and it just kind of stuck. But bootleg happiness is really when you are in a space, right, where you I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But let me get it back. But bootleg happiness is when you're trying to fill a void by doing something else. So maybe you are an emotional eater, right? Or maybe you turn to drugs or alcohol or partying, or you're constantly, attracting men that are unattractive, or you're staying at your job just because you're too afraid of stepping out, or because you might not make enough when you first step out and start that business, right? So you are living in this space of bootleg happiness. It's just filling a temporary void, right? Because you're not really willing to do the inner healing work that we've kind of been talking about this entire time, so that you can move into a space where you're actually really happy. So instead you settle. It's basically like you settling. And that's why I call it bootleg happiness.
Yeah. And you know what? You're reminding me so much of, I think there's so many overlaps in our work. When I think about bootleg happiness, I think about some of the surface, flat, shallow happiness that we are taught to perform as women, where you're taught even from a young age, your mom or your dad teaches you to smile when you come into a room. Smile, look pretty, before you maybe feel like smiling authentically, or before you actually feel truly pretty and attractive. You're not maybe ready for it, but you're taught to perform happiness. You're taught to demonstrate happiness, even if it has no roots. It's just, it's just a mask. I think about lots of different ways that we're taught not only to perform happiness, but we're taught in lots of false ways about how happiness comes into effect. So I have a blog that I posted several months ago, maybe even a year ago now, and it's called Why Your Positive Affirmations Don't Work. It's one of my favorite blogs. It's shared probably more than any other blog, and it's because we've been sold a bag of goods that says, you can be happy right now in 5 seconds. Just say these positive affirmations. Keep telling yourself you love yourself. Keep telling yourself you're beautiful. Tell yourself you're sexy. Tell yourself you're fierce. Say that you're confident. Say you have high self-esteem. Say you deserve the best. Say it, say it, say it. And what ends up happening is that amounts to bootleg happiness also. Because you might get a jolt in the arm. You might feel good hearing yourself say the words, but the truth is, and, Tara knows this, I know this, a lot of women know this, and maybe if you don't, I'm here to tell you, if you don't believe it in your soul, saying it with your mouth is not going to have the effect you hope for. It actually may re-traumatize a person. Because when one is saying something over and over and over again with an insistent energy, like insisting that it's true, but you don't really believe it, it actually can make a person feel anxious and depressed. Because it's not authentic. It's bootleg. Yeah.
I like how you said bootleg.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we have time for one more quick question. So,
okay.
We talked a little bit about what it means to unleash your fears. You talked about the powerful acronym. You talked about your work. Let me know if you can share 3 closing ideas. 3 maybe methods, maybe 3 questions, maybe 3 activities that you can recommend to women as parting gifts. These are our parting gifts for the Supreme Love Summit Teleseminar and podcast series, whether it's Hot Help or Cold Crush. We like to leave our listeners with jewels, with nuggets of gold. So what are the 3 parting gifts that you can provide for us? 3 key ideas, questions, methods, strategies, techniques that we can do today to help us to melt some of the icebergs around our hearts.
Okay, so the first thing that I would recommend as a key takeaway from today is that I truly believe that every woman should have some type of, and I like to call this a confidence routine, right? People call it all different types of things, but every woman should have some type of sacred time with themselves, right? Because we're always so busy doing things for everybody else, and we never to kind of sit down and refocus, right? Because most women are like, well, I don't have time to sit down and do all of the work that you gave me or to kind of read this or watch that, right? Which, again, if you don't do the work, you're never going to heal. You're never going to move forward. So I recommend setting up some type of confidence routine, whether that's you, and I usually recommend women waking up, at least an hour early prior to their regular day, or maybe even devoting an hour even before you go to bed at night, right, where you take that time and just focus on your own healing and empowerment. So, and you can do whatever you want during that time frame, but I usually suggest that women that they journal during that time, right, or if there's like a Bible verse or something that really speaks to them, that they look at that time, or if they do some type of daily devotional at that time. Or even, and this is only for women who have really started doing the healing work. I know you mentioned the affirmations don't work if you don't believe it, but for women who do actually have started doing the work, if there are some affirmations that you would like to say during that time, that would be the time, right? Or even waking up in the morning and having like a cup of lemon water, or even if that's exercising. But it's something that is emotionally, spiritually, physically, and mentally like soothing for your soul, right? And it's empowering for you. That could even be reading an empowering book, right? That could even be watching one of Janine, a video from Janine, like watching Janine's TED Talk, right? Which I absolutely love. I forgot to mention that earlier. And some of the most successful people in the world, if you read their biographies, or they've written books just on that concept, right? And again, I like to call it a confidence routine, but it's just you simply waking up earlier in the morning so that when you walk out of the house in the morning time, which is why I prefer this, that you're walking out, fierce and confident and powerful, right? You kind of already, have a strong foundation kind of in place when you walk out that door, right? Just from doing some empowering, activities in the morning for you. I forgot, what else was I supposed to, I know I was supposed to give takeaway.
Yeah, just 3. So we have confidence routine. We need our sacred time, and that's a great a great nugget and a great takeaway. And another parting gift that you just said was to seek out inspirational messages, either through reading blogs, watching inspirational videos, or coaching calls. So we have the sacred time, the confidence routine, and we have going out and collecting like a library, I would say.
Exactly. So I would recommend, and I want to add to that library, yes, and that's even, like you kept mentioning earlier, and this is actually kind of going into my third one, but it's to also find someone who can kind of be your confidence mentor in a way. So someone who can, so maybe it's not an actual coach, right? So maybe you can't afford a program at the time, but there's always usually someone you look up to or that you admire or that you see, you know, that she kind of is where you would like to be. So even if that's just asking, you know, hey, do you mind if we go out for lunch, and kind of asking them questions, or something like that, or even asking somebody, you know, to be your mentor, right? Or even if that is getting a coach, right? Somebody that can help you get to where it is that you need to be. And even if that might be too much for you, consider purchasing someone's coaching program or someone's ebook or building your own library. I know personally I have a binder, and it says on there like Tara's empowerment binder, right? And it's from stuff I've collected over the years, because I'm constantly working on my own self, right? Because I can't really help other women if I haven't first kind of worked through my own stuff. And it's an ongoing process, as we've been saying. But I pull that binder out. Maybe I don't go through it every day, but there are tons of activities in there that I kind of go through, or things that I need to read, you know, to kind of reaffirm and empower myself to keep moving forward. So basically, my main message is to constantly try to keep the empowerment around you, right? Even down to, and I guess this was kind of like a bonus, but even down to how you decorate your office space at work, or even your bedroom, right? Which in my mind, and my belief is that it should kind of be like your sanctuary. So for example, in my own room, I have kind of all my walls are full of like my vision, right? So some people say vision boards. I mean, if you're into that, yeah. But it's literally my vision, my 5-year vision, my 10-year. There are pictures everywhere of where I see myself going, right? So I know that the work that I'm doing internally, right, is just as important as the pictures I'm seeing externally outside of myself, right? But all throughout my room, if you walked in, you would see all types of affirming and empowering words all over, right?
Yeah.
And all different types of colors. I have a lot of pink because that's my brain color, but I also just love, I love having those messages. I buy journals that have the empowering messages so that they're just always kind of in my space. So as soon as I walk in, it's almost like I know that I'm home. I know I'm in a safe space, so I can easily go into that sacred time with myself or with my higher power and reconnect with my soul and, release anything I need to let go of, such as baggage, so that I can continue to move forward in my purpose, right? And just instead of having bootleg happiness, have real happiness. Because I'm sitting down with my journal and unpacking those things that I need to release.
Amen. Yes, yes, yes. The way that I'm listening to you, Tara, and I'm envisioning what you're saying to us and sharing with us is I'm seeing a wraparound. Like I just see arms wrapping around a woman. And that wraparound is about having wraparound services, wraparound support, wraparound encouragement, wraparound family, so that we don't slip through the cracks. Because, crushing your cold, this is what we're talking about here. Crushing your cold, really like melting that ice, and getting in touch with those stories, creating new stories, developing new habits, that takes time. It takes support. It takes perseverance. It takes some strength. And if you are coming to this summit and you're coming to my work or coming to Tara's work or any of my guests, it's because you are probably, you're likely at a bottom. Maybe not the bottom, but you're at a bottom. Maybe you've hit a wall. Maybe you're feeling tired. Maybe you're feeling sick and tired. Maybe you're feeling frustrated. You might be feeling a little weak in your body, weak in your mind. Maybe you don't have great focus. Maybe you're not exceptionally disciplined with your routine, the way that Tara is suggesting, to wake up an hour earlier. But if you have what Tara is suggesting, if you have what I am suggesting and I'm advocating for in the Supreme Love Project, if you've got those wraparound services, wraparound support, where you've got it coming from multiple directions. You've got your inspirational videos and quotes. archived. You've got your sacred time and your alarm set. You have a mentor or a coach on tap. Maybe you enlist a girlfriend that you trust, not one who's embittered or who's so traumatized and not ready to get help, but I mean one who is like-minded and on the same page. If you can get those ducks in a row, my sister, and you are listening to me right now, I am talking to you. If you can get the strength to get those ducks in a row, you're on your way. You are on your way to unleashing your fears, to becoming a supreme lover. Am I right, Tara?
Yes, you are so right.
Amen. Well, that is all our time today. This was a fantastic interview. I like your voice so much. I like your work so much. I thank you so much for your parting gifts and for spending this hour with us. I feel enlightened and I feel blessed by your presence and your service, and especially by your story, Tara. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You are absolutely welcome. So everyone, listen to me closely. Take this message to heart. Build it into your body. I think about you all the time. I pray for you all the time. And we will see you next time on another episode of the Supreme Love Project.
Thank you for participating in the Supreme Love Project. We're a division of Literacy for Life, LLC. Please visit thesupremeloveproject.com for more information about our products and services. Visit JanineStaples.com for more information about our beloved founder and president. And remember, take this message to heart and build it into your body. We'll see you next time, right here. The place to make love, not war, every day of your life.